This is Safety Bri, your number one safety geek. Why do we have the behaviors that we do? Superheroes in the workplace, right? All of those things that go into making you an effective safety manager. I love what we do. Motivation, learning, teaching, training, teamwork. I geek out over that just as much as I do safety. Hello, my safety friends. Welcome to the Safety Geek podcast. This is Bri, your number one safety geek. How is everybody doing? Did you have the most amazing holiday? I hope that you did. I know I did. My brother came down from New York and we had a nice little family gathering. We actually did it on Wednesday before the holiday because flights are cheaper on Thanksgiving Day, and he had to fly back on Thanksgiving Day. So anyway, how are you feeling about this upcoming holiday season and about it being the end of the first, well, I guess it's the second decade of the year 2000s, right? So anyway, how are you feeling about that? I know it's been kind of like all over social media about how so many days left until the end of the decade. You know, I kind of like that. It's kind of neat when people check out that kind of stuff. So I hope you're feeling good about it. Before we get started, I actually have an announcement that's kind of related to that. And that is that I am having my first ever online workshop. I am super excited about this. Like, more than you guys could even know. I am so excited about this. So what the workshop is going to be about is planning your 2020. So it is about goal setting and action planning to make the next decade better than the last decade. So we are going to talk about setting your goals and creating an action plan and basically crushing it in 2020. That's what I want to that's what I want to see happening. So the reason why I'm doing this is I absolutely love planning. I love organizing. I love, setting goals and basically knocking them out of the park, right? And meeting the goals that I have. And I developed a technique about 15 years ago that I have been using ever since about how to plan my goals and how to achieve them. And I believe that my goal setting strategy is what has made me the success that I am today. And that's what I want to share with you. So what we're going to talk about during this workshop is setting those big goals, dreaming a little bit. What do you want out of life? And really thinking big, all right? And then taking those big goals and breaking them down into manageable steps. And then we'll create a plan on how to achieve them and how to achieve more while working around your current schedule and family. I think that's where a lot of people miss it, is that you still have day-to-day operations to deal with, right? You still have family that you have obligations for and all of that. So we'll work around that schedule. We'll also work on taking action to the plan and daily rituals that'll help get you closer to achieving those goals and keeping you on track, and different accountability techniques so that way you can make sure that you're meeting these goals. So it's not a workshop that you're just going to sit there and listen to me talk. When you get done with this workshop, you're actually going to walk away with, or I should say you'll have the tools, and once you finish doing the activities, you will walk away with step-by-step instructions on how to do this goal setting. So you could do this every year, right? And an action plan for the year, and as well as a detailed calendar with detailed weekly tasks to complete. So that way you will definitely crush it in 2020. All right. Now, who is this workshop for? I know that my audience is safety managers, but it's actually for anybody. It's for anybody who wants to achieve more. It's for anybody who feels like they're spinning their wheels and they're just not getting anywhere. It is for those people who just need a boost in their life or in their job, or just get them out from feeling stuck. Right? If you don't have to be a safety manager to attend. So I want you to share this with all of your friends and all of your family, because it is definitely a great technique to learn and to master. So to get more information, you need to go to asksafetygeek.com/goal setting. All right. That's Safety Geek, asksafetygeek.com/goal setting. And you will see where you can register for the workshop, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. So once again, I'm super excited about that. I hope that you decide to join me. Either way, I'm very excited to be teaching it. And I'm very excited to be doing my own goal setting for 2020. So it's looking bright, my friends, looking bright. I'm so excited. All right, so let's get on to this week's show, which is about goal setting. Woohoo! But it's more for safety purposes and not just necessarily about everything. So what I wanted to talk to you about with goal setting is that as a safety manager or safety professional, every workplace should have safety goals that they're working towards every single year. Maybe you update the goals every 3 months, every 6 months, once a year, once every 5 years, whatever. But everybody should have goals that they are working for. And I'm going to go through some steps on how you actually set up those goals on this episode. But there's a couple of things I want to talk about before we get into the steps. And the first one is not setting yourself up for failure. And this is something that I see people do all the time. They make their goals way too hard to meet. And then they beat themselves up when they don't meet them. When if you really just took a step back and said, there was no way that you're going to get 100% improvement in 3 months. It's just, you kind of have to look at what your goals are and actually set them to where they are achievable. And the other thing is you want to have goals that have things that you actually have control over. Because if you don't have control over the outcome, how can you goal set against it? And this is a great thing to think about with safety goals, because so many times we set our safety goals to be injury numbers or accident numbers. And in all reality, we have very little control as to whether or not an accident happens. We put in all of our safe work practices and all of our safe steps, and we engineer out as much as possible. But really, there's a human factor in every activity, and we are counting on that human being to follow those safe work practices to a T, which is an unrealistic expectation. So we are setting goals for things that we don't have control over. So an idea in goal setting might be to set a goal for an activity and not necessarily for a number. So that way you're celebrating success if you complete the activity, and that way you're not, beating yourself up if even though you complete the activity, the humans don't do what they're supposed to do and somebody still loses an arm and you are now not meeting your goal. Right. And I've seen this. I've seen where people will set a goal of like, I want a 20% reduction in back injuries, right? I've done this myself even. I want a 20% reduction in back injuries. And within 2 weeks, we had 5 back injuries, which made it impossible to meet the goal ever. So what do? You get all angry. You get mad. You step away. You mope and you pout and you ruminate about it, right? Because now there's no way you're going to meet your goal. Where if I had just set the goal of being, I want to get back injury training completed. I want to have observations showing that people are understanding the training. I want to, have an incentive program based around whether or not they're lifting properly. I want to shoot for 80% compliance with our stretching program, whatever it happens to be. When you base your goals on the activities, you are more likely to meet those goals because it's things that you and your management team can directly affect. I hate it when I've worked for companies where they actually set bonuses based on things that I had no control over whatsoever, like sales of the organization. My bonus is based on somebody else's work. Does that make me work harder? No, because I don't have control over that. And if the sales team messes up, well, then I'm not going to work any harder because I'm not going to be getting the bonus anyway, right? It's almost like just giving the bonus just to give it. If we meet this amount, then I'm going to share the profits with you. That would be different in saying, well, no, we're going to bonus you for your work, but it's based on what the sales team does. So obviously you can tell that I have some sore feelings about that, right? So another thing, if you want to goal set on numbers, don't put deadlines on those numbers. Put deadlines on the activities. So you can still say, I want to reach for a 20% reduction in back injuries, but then the deadlines that you set would be based on the activities along with that. Like you're going to list the activities you're going to do to reduce those back injuries. And that's where you put deadlines on it. But you don't put deadlines on the numbers because you don't have control over that. All right. So that's the first thing, is don't set yourself up for failure, because you want to actually set yourself up to have wins. So that way you can celebrate. The brain likes that. The brain likes to celebrate. And then it makes you want to do more and more and more. I love talking brain chemistry. All right. The next one is long-term goals versus short-term goals. Now, I love setting long-term goals. I generally always have a 10-year goal in mind. I have a 5-year goal in mind as well. But the disadvantage about long-term goals is that you're then putting off 10 years for the celebration phase, or 5 years, or even 1 year, right? And if you're only celebrating in those short intervals, it is harder to stay motivated to keep moving towards that goal. So that's why you have to have a mix of both long and short-term goals. So that way you are constantly celebrating and giving everybody that nice little dopamine hit that, hey, you did great. Congratulations. We met the goal. And what's our next one? We're going to crush that one too. Right? So you want to have a good mix of both. So your long-term goal should be very, very broad. And your short-term goal can be very specific and small, but by completing it, it takes you one step closer to that long-term goal. So you're basically going to take that long-term goal and break it down into short, small, quick wins of short-term goals. And I like short-term goals to be anywhere from like a month to 90 days long. Almost project-based, right? So that way you're kind of celebrating after each little project that's getting you closer. So having those frequent wins helps maintain support for your safety program, because it's not just you getting the dopamine hit of having that quick win. It's the entire management team and employees as well. So what you have to realize is the way that the brain works is that when it does something good and it does something that feels good, it wants more of that. So it'll allow you, and it actually makes it easier for you to do things and move forward. But when you have a long-term goal where you're not celebrating and getting all those good feelings in between, what happens is the brain starts to fight back, just like a little toddler saying, hey, why are we doing this? This isn't fun. Well, of course it's not fun, but in 10 years, it'll pay off. Don't worry. That's not good. So you have to have those short-term goals as well. So you stay focused on the short-term goals, but you only look at the long-term goal maybe once a year and make sure that you're still in line and still doing all the tasks to meet up to it. All right. Now, the other thing I want to tell you about goals is that they are above and beyond your day-to-day business. Things that are routine within your job are not a goal. Okay. So a lot of times I'll ask people, what are your goals? And they're like, well, my goal is to update all of my safety policies and get them approved by the end of the quarter. Well, you have to do that every couple of years anyway. That's a day-to-day goal. That's not going to move your program forward. So think about that. Whatever these goals are, whatever you choose for these goals to be, it is not what you are currently doing. It is something that you're going to be doing that is above and beyond. That is how you get continuous improvement. Your routine tasks, everything that you're currently doing every day or every week or every month, that is what got you to where you are right now. Goal setting is continuous improvement to make you just a little bit better. It doesn't have to be a big giant leap either. It could be just a tiny baby step better. I will tell you, we set a goal one time. Our safety maintenance work orders were taking close to 90 days on average to get closed, which obviously is unacceptable. So we set a goal. We weren't going to go from 90 days to 3 days. That's not realistic. So we set baby steps and we said, okay, we can do one big leap to 60 days, right? So then we set the goal for 60 days. And then from there, we just kept tightening the goal, little baby steps every couple months. What do we need to do to get it down to, 30 days? What do we need to do to get it down to 25 days? And eventually it did take a good 6 to 9 months, but we got it down to 3 days, most being completed the same day or within 24 hours. So it takes those baby steps, and then you just continually do a baby step, one right after the other. So you want to reduce your lifting injuries by 20%. What activities can you do? And each activity that you do is going to reduce it just a tiny bit and a tiny bit. Or let's say that you want to improve your lockout tagout policy. What step can you take to improve your lockout policy? Maybe we're going to add pictures to the tags that people are putting on the locks. Maybe we're going to color code the locks for different areas. Everything is another step to make an improvement on the program. So it's a continuous improvement, and you just don't try to do it all at once, right? So the goal should not be to change the world overnight, because if that's your goal, you're going to get discouraged, all right? Your brain's not going to be happy with you. All right. Okay. So those are the things to keep in mind. Let me review those again. That for one, you don't want to set yourself up for failure. So the goals have to be attainable and they have to be realistic. And you want to focus on activities and not numbers. 2, you want to have a combination of long-term and short-term goals, but focus on those short-term goals. And the short-term goals should support the long-term goal, that if you do all the short-term goals, you will eventually get to your long-term goal. 3, the goals are above and beyond what you normally do. So don't put in your day-to-day tasks into your goal setting plan, because that's just you trying to show off all the stuff that you do. And 4, I think that's 4, right? Yeah, 4, is continuous improvement. Just know that that's really the ultimate goal, is how can I improve my program just a little bit? Small continuous improvement steps. Put that into all your goals. All right, let's get started. I guess it's maybe 5-step process for setting your goals for your company. I don't know. I marked some of them as steps, some of them I didn't. So we'll see how it goes. The first one, number 1 goal, is you have to know your trending. You have to understand your trending. So you have to be collecting data and looking at your trends. You need to know what your injury numbers are, but you also need to know the behaviors that are contributing to those injury numbers, right? So you have to know what your problem areas are. All right, so take a piece of paper, make sure you have your trending all ready, make it nice and pretty because we're going to present this to the management team. But look at your trending, and I want you to take a piece of paper and pick 5 to 10 problem areas and put a grid on your piece of paper and mark each one as a problem area. Each little box on your grid. I'd probably do 8 because you can take a nice piece of paper and split it into 8 squares pretty easily. You can even fold the paper if you need to make your squares. All right, so label each of those squares your problem areas, which are based on your trending, and make sure your trending information is presentable because we are going to present it to the management team. Number 2, brainstorm ways that you can improve each of these problem areas. Just start listing them in the boxes. It doesn't have to be neat. This is for your own purpose. Nobody's going to see it. No idea is a bad idea. You are going to list every possible idea that you can list on this piece of paper. Okay? And it should be full. It should be messy. Okay? So it has to be a piece of paper with anywhere from 4 to 10 blocks on it. All your problem areas listed. And problem areas could be something like lifting. It could be slips, trips, and falls. It could be automobile accidents. Your problem areas are usually pretty broad. Okay. And then you're going to brainstorm, what can we change in our program that's going to make it a little bit better? All right. Next step, and I didn't put this in my notes, but next step is for each problem area, you're going to circle the top 2 ideas. The 2 best that you think we can do this year, and it's something that is likely to be approved, right? So 2 for each. So if you had 8 squares, that means you're going to have 16 ideas. And you're going to put those on a list to carry with you when we go talk to the management team. But you're going to keep it hidden away. I'll explain that in a moment. All right, so that's the next step is pick your 2 best ideas for each problem area. Now, step 3 or 4, whatever number I happen to be on, is you're going to decide on your goals. Now, this is the tricky part because who do you think decides on what the safety goals are going to be for your organization? Who do you think it is? It is not you, or at least it is not you alone. It is your whole management team, preferably your executive management team, your highest level of management that you have at that facility. Those are the people that are going to decide what your goals for the company are going to be. And what you're going to do is you're going to gather them all in a meeting and you're going to say, hey, we need to set some safety goals. And here is our trending information. And here are the problem areas that I've identified, me being the safety professional, right? So you're going to give them all of this information and say, hey, we need to set goals. Ideally, I like to send them the information before the meeting as part of the agenda because there are several types of people that you're generally dealing with. One, they can look at the information and quickly analyze it and come up with ideas. And there's another type of person that they have to think about it for quite a while. They want to be prepared when they come to the meeting. So by you sending it ahead of time, you're placating that type of personality. And you want to do this because you want them to participate in the meeting, right? So what you're going to do is that list of 16, 20 items, whatever it is you happen to create, that's staying hidden for now. We as safety managers are going to keep our mouths shut. We are going to say, these are our trending. These are the problem areas I've identified. We as a management team need to brainstorm some ideas for improvement. What do you think? And then keep your mouth shut. And that's hard, right? It's so hard because you've got this list of 20 ideas and you know that they're like the best ideas in the world and you just want to share them. But the thing is, the minute you start talking, you're shutting down their ideas. So Simon Sinek, I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. He has a book called Leaders Eat Last. I think that's the title of the book. He also has Start With Why. But the thing about Leaders Eat Last, and he has a whole story, you can find it on YouTube, about this general who went to go eat and there was no food left. And he's like, leaders eat last. But what I like about this idea, and this is what Simon Sinek preaches too, is that leaders also keep their mouths shut. Because the minute a leader walks into the room and starts spouting their ideas, and I'm sure you've experienced this because I know I have, they start spouting their ideas, it shuts down everybody else who's in the room because then they're just like, well, why am I even going to talk? Because you're going to do whatever you want to do anyway. So the whole idea is in order to get them talking, you can't talk. So you want your management team to be coming up with brainstorming ideas on how you can improve the safety program. You want them speaking because once they start shooting from the hip and giving you all of these ideas, what's going on is they're getting engaged. They're getting involved in safety. And as long as you pick as long as they're involved in the process of picking an idea, they're going to support it. But if you walk in and say, here's our goals for next year, do you agree with them? Yeah, they may agree with them, but they're never going to support them like they would if they were part of the process, right? So once you've given them time to brainstorm and possibly 7, 8 of the ideas they've come up with, you actually had on your list already, that's when you can pull out your paper and you can say, hey, I did write down some ideas too. Let me see if I had any that we hadn't thought of yet. And then you can add them to the list too. And then now you have a whiteboard full of ideas for your brainstorm that you and your management team have brainstormed. The next step is to choose 3 of them. I say 3 to 5 actually, but I prefer 3. So you pick 3 of them. Take a picture of the board because you can use that again once you've completed these 3 goals. And you say, okay, these are the ideas we came up with 3 months ago. Let's pick 3 more. But for right now, you're just going to pick 3. And why 3? or 5 if you want to really be an overachiever, is because remember, safety goals are above and beyond the day-to-day operations, not just for you, but for them as well. So you don't want to spread yourself or your team too thin. And if you're trying to focus on 5 projects at once, you're not going to get there. So you want to make sure that you're really focused on one project at a time. But what happens with projects is that sometimes they hit a delay point where you just have to wait. You got to wait for things to happen. While you're waiting, you can then start on project number 2, right? But if you had too many of them lined up, it would seem overwhelming and you would get discouraged. So you really only want to focus at one goal at a time. And I'll tell you something, this is from Rachel Hollis. I recently saw her speak and I'm going to totally mess this up, but she says this a couple of times. And if you've ever read her books, I'm sure she mentions it in there too. She has a Girl Stop Apologizing and Girl Wash Your Face. But one of the things she says is that if I give you 6 soccer balls and I say, kick the balls to the goal, but you can only use 6 kicks. How close can you get to the goal if you compare like kicking each soccer ball 1 time or kicking 1 ball 6 times? You get a lot closer to the goal. So it's the same with your safety goals. You want to focus on one project at a time, and you don't move to the next project until there is a pause or a delay or something like that with project number 1, or project number 1 is completed. All right. The stage we are at is that you're going to pick 3 to 5 goals, circle them on your whiteboard. It's going to be a decision of the entire management team, not just you. All right. And then you're going to take that goal and then you're going to write it as a SMART goal. A SMART goal stands for specific, meaning that it is a well-written goal that has some specificity to it. So back injuries, not just strains or sprains, right? It has to be measurable. So you have to have a way of measuring success. There has to be like a completion or a reduction or something like that. It has to be attainable, which is kind of what we talked about in the beginning about not setting yourself up for failure. It has to be relevant. And relevant means from that it has to kind of match the overall corporation's goals or company's goals, right? Which are generally like good customer service and sales and keeping employees happy and all that good stuff. All right, so it does have to be relevant. So the way that I always looked at relevancy is that it had to do with compliance or culture, or maybe work towards, like my groups were always working towards VPP or work towards VPP, right? So it either reduced injuries, it reduced vehicle accidents, it got us more in compliance, or it changed our culture. And that would make it relevant to me. And then time bound means that you actually put a date on it, a date that you're going to get it done. But remember, that date is predicated on the activities and not necessarily on the numbers, because you don't really have control over the numbers, especially when there are other humans involved. All right. So that is the last step. You've chose your goals and you wrote them as SMART goals. You now have goals for your company. What you do from this point is you action plan them out. And I'm not going to get into action planning on this episode because I wrote an entire post about action planning, and I even gave you a downloadable action planning template. So there will be a link in the show notes. So be sure that you check that out. I can't remember if it was a podcast or if it was a blog post or if it was both, but I'll definitely put it in the show notes before this episode airs. All right. So that is goal setting, my friends, for your safety program. The biggest thing that I want you to get out of this is that you do not choose your goals by yourself, right? And you don't choose them with your regional safety manager either. I've seen that too, where people are like, no, I didn't set them, my regional did. And I'm like, that's not going to work. Because if your management team is not part of the decision-making process, they are less likely to support those goals. They will understand that you have a goal, but they have not internalized it themselves because they weren't part of the process. So I hope that you're getting that out of this, is that you cannot choose your goals by yourself. Alrighty, my friends. that is all that I have for you. Don't forget to check out my workshop, AskSafetyGeek.com/goal setting. It is going to be amazing. I cannot wait to teach it. So in the meantime, you guys have a great day, and I will chat with you next week. Thanks. Bye-bye. Check out the show notes and links for this week's show at www.AskSafetyGeek.com. If you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. There are occasional bonus episodes that I don't always advertise, and you won't want to miss them. Hey, one more favor. Leave a review on that app too. It helps others find the show. Thanks. I really appreciate it and can't wait to talk to you next week.